Welcome to the Restricted Handling Daily Intel Brief. This is what's been going on in Iran and the Middle East in the past 24 hours. The United States and Saudi Arabia signed a civilian nuclear cooperation agreement that could eventually allow Saudi Arabia to enrich uranium domestically. The agreement is designed to support Saudi Arabia's long term energy plans, bring major opportunities for American nuclear companies, and keep competitors like China and Russia from gaining influence over one of the region's most important strategic industries. But this agreement comes with a major debate attached. Nuclear technology in the Middle East has always been about more than electricity. It is about prestige, leverage, and security calculations. Saudi Arabia has spent years pushing for the ability to develop a domestic nuclear program, and Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman has previously said that if Iran developed a nuclear weapon, Saudi Arabia would seek a similar capability. That history is why this agreement is generating concern in Washington and across the region. The U.S. is currently fighting Iran over Tehran's nuclear ambitions, while also giving Saudi Arabia a pathway that could eventually include enrichment capability. Supporters argue that keeping Riyadh tied to American technology and oversight is far better than allowing China or Russia to fill that role. Critics argue that the agreement risks weakening decades of U.S. nonproliferation policy. The comparison being discussed most often is the U.S. agreement with the United Arab Emirates. That deal became known as the gold standard because Abu Dhabi agreed to permanently give up enrichment and accepted stronger international inspections. Saudi Arabia's agreement appears to provide more flexibility, and that difference could become one of the defining nuclear policy debates of the coming years. The timing is also politically significant. A nuclear agreement with Saudi Arabia had previously been viewed as part of a broader effort to normalize Saudi-Israeli relations. That diplomatic package never materialized, but Washington moved ahead anyway, signaling that the U.S.-Saudi partnership remains a priority even when it does not align perfectly with Israeli preferences. Meanwhile, the regional conflict is continuing to expand beyond Iran's direct confrontation with the United States. The newest pressure point is the Red Sea, where Iran-backed Houthi forces have moved from threats to action against Saudi-linked shipping. The Houthis claimed attacks against two Saudi oil tankers, the Encilia and the Layla, after announcing a blockade targeting Saudi ports. Saudi officials confirmed that one tanker was struck and caught fire, while details surrounding the second vessel remain uncertain. The significance is that the Houthis are threatening another critical maritime route at the same time Iran is contesting access through the Strait of Hormuz. This creates a much broader economic challenge. The global energy system depends heavily on these waterways, and shipping companies do not need to see a complete shutdown to change behavior. The threat itself can be enough. Vessels change routes, insurance costs rise, and companies begin avoiding areas where the risk calculation becomes too difficult. Several ships have already altered course rather than risk Saudi-linked routes through the Red Sea. Two Chinese supertankers carrying Saudi oil are also moving through the area, creating an important test of whether the Houthis will challenge China-linked shipping or focus primarily on Saudi and Western interests. For Iran, the strategic value is obvious. Tehran benefits whenever the conflict becomes more expensive for Washington and its partners. The Houthis may have their own motivations tied to Yemen and Saudi Arabia, but their actions create additional pressure on the U.S.-led regional security architecture. The U.S. response has been to emphasize that it will not accept Iran or its partners establishing control over international waterways. Washington's concern extends beyond immediate oil supplies. The larger issue is precedent. If states or armed groups can successfully use geography as a weapon against global commerce, other actors around the world may take notice. At the same time, the U.S.-Iran confrontation is moving into a more dangerous phase, with both sides increasingly threatening economic infrastructure. President Trump warned that future Iranian attacks against shipping in the Strait of Hormuz could result in U.S. strikes against Iranian infrastructure, including bridges and power facilities. Iranian Foreign Minister Abbas Araghchi responded that Tehran would retaliate against any attack on Iranian infrastructure and warned that energy and economic systems across the region could become targets. That raises the stakes significantly. The conflict is no longer only about military positions or maritime access. Both sides are signaling that infrastructure, energy networks, and national economic systems could become part of the contest. The military activity remains important, but the larger question is what it says about the endurance of both sides. The U.S. has continued strikes against Iranian military facilities, including sites connected to missiles, drones, maritime capabilities, and weapons production. At the same time, Iran has demonstrated that it still has the ability to strike American positions across the region. Recent Iranian attacks against U.S. facilities in Jordan, Kuwait, Bahrain, and Iraq highlight the challenge facing Washington. At Muwafaq Salti Air Base in Jordan, Iranian strikes killed 3 U.S. service members and damaged military infrastructure. Nearly 100 U.S. personnel have been injured since early July, with some of the most seriously wounded evacuated to Germany. The broader lesson is that Iran's capabilities have been reduced, but not eliminated. Tehran still has enough military capacity to create political pressure inside the United States and among American partners. Jordan remains a critical example. The kingdom continues hosting thousands of U.S. personnel despite becoming a target for Iranian retaliation. Amman relies heavily on its relationship with Washington for economic and military support, making the alliance difficult to replace despite the risks. Another major intelligence question is emerging around Russia's potential role in Iranian attacks. U.S. analysts are investigating whether Moscow provided targeting assistance or advanced drone technology after Iranian strikes against CIA-related facilities in the region. Officials have not reached a final conclusion, but the investigation reflects broader concerns about Russia and Iran deepening military cooperation. Moscow has increasingly worked with Tehran in recent years, and any direct role in helping target U.S. intelligence facilities would represent a significant escalation in that partnership. Beyond the immediate U.S.-Iran fight, Lebanon and Iraq remain vulnerable pressure points. In Lebanon, Hezbollah is attempting to protect its political and military position as the Lebanese government considers steps to expand state control and limit Hezbollah's independent armed capabilities. The challenge is that Hezbollah is not simply a military organization. It is deeply embedded in Lebanese politics and society, making any effort to disarm the group extremely difficult. In Iraq, Prime Minister Ali al-Zaidi is attempting to push Iran-backed militias toward greater integration with the state, while maintaining relationships with both Washington and Tehran. Iraqi sovereignty remains under pressure from competing outside powers and armed groups operating inside the country. The larger picture is that the Middle East conflict is increasingly becoming a contest over influence, economic leverage, nuclear access, and control of strategic geography. Iran is trying to prove it can absorb pressure and continue imposing costs. The United States is trying to demonstrate that Tehran cannot use proxies, maritime threats, and regional networks to shape the outcome on its own terms. Thanks for listening. The headlines will keep coming, so we'll keep sorting signal from noise. Find the daily written brief at restrictedhandling.substack.com, and we'll be back with more tomorrow.